As a volunteer with the History Makers, I was like a kid in the candy store with all types of access to the Franklin Institute staff and the super scientists that were on board at the Color of Science event.
It's called the Weekend Edition, the Philadelphia Inquirer Weekend Edition. Every now and then on Fridays, they put a special edition to capture what's happening in the city. And so our event tonight got a cover story. The cover says, "A light on black scientists. A panel brings 4 leaders to the Franklin Institute." And we are, or you are, in the center spread. So in the middle is Derek Pitts and myself working the cell phone wall based on your technology. It's in our electricity exhibit, you'll see it. And they talk about different things, but they also highlight the science makers and history makers and the collaborative effort to put on this wonderful panel. So I will make sure that each of the science makers and scientists get a copy of this. And I should also mention, there's been a lot of coverage. Radio interviews, Derek Pitts has been on 2 different television networks, NBC and ABC. And I should tell you, the auditorium seats 264. We've registered over 370 now, and we will have a ton more because folks are just so interested. So what we've done is we've extended an overflow room so that it will be a packed house tonight.
Over lunch, the presenters, staff, and crew had an opportunity to go over the logistics of the program. And it was so inspiring just to hear the scientists casually just talk like family about how they got involved in science and what it was like being called a geek.
Fortunate that, my experience in education and even in a public school system, a large city, was superb. But I also recognize, I'm sobered by the fact that, the Baltimore City Public Schools then, and may still be now, was tracked. And I was just very, very fortunate that, again, because of things outside of my own doing, I could do well in those standardized tests, so I was always in the top classes. And if you are at the very bottom or the very top, you get the great attention, and it's the people in the broad middle who don't. So, I had an absolutely stellar education. We could have gone anywhere with that education.
I can tell you the exact day, Christmas Day, 1981. That's when my dad bought me, my parents bought me, I should say, an Atari 2600.
What is that?
So that was the first time I was like, wow, I can actually change the behavior of the things on TV. I can actually that was amazing. And I was obsessed with trying to get all sorts of new games, asteroids, all those games were tons of fun, and it led to the question of how do I make my own games. Mm-hmm. And so that.
And so, we were, I never felt ostracized in terms of whatever my gifts were, that, it was okay. Yeah.
Well, I want to commend you on that, and that's the testimony, as you said, that you were strong in your own skin. And so I don't know if that came from your parents or that's just you. But that is
my
not.
My grandfather would say I was hard-headed, but
there
that's
you go.
okay.
and that's not a typical phenotype or a typical quality. And so a lot of kids don't have that strength, or a lot of kids are more susceptible to peer pressure and can't, do what you do, have that iron rod to say, you guys can clown me and make fun of me, but I love this pocket protector with all my pens in it.
You have to be able to bring things together and apply them in very creative ways. So that's probably what encouraged me to do the synthetic biology thing, was it appeals to my artistic side as well as my scientific side.
Be able to, because an interest in art is inherent in most young people. But the transition from art to science, we haven't figured out how to make that.
What's interesting is my path into, where I started graduate school, I started doing computer graphics, 3D computer graphics. And the reason I wanted to study 3D computer graphics was because I couldn't draw. I had no really artistic skills, but I had a procedural mind. I could code up what I wanted things to look like. And it didn't make my pictures look that good anyway. But but at least I could make those pictures, and I didn't have to be a skilled artist.
That's fascinating. So that's the kind of discussion we'd like to. We'd like to see more of that happening. So, okay, well, so we're going to get started.
My transition slide is to one of the 5 stars of the night. Unfortunately, this slide, both people are pretty famous. On the left, of course, we have the Philadelphian Bill Cosby, and on the right, we have our very own Derek Pitts. Derek Pitts Derek Pitts is the chief astronomer and head of the Fells Planetarium here for us at the Franklin Institute. His resume is ridiculously long, but most recently he's appeared on the Colbert Report as well as the Chris Ferguson show. But my most favorite stat on Derek Pitts is last year being the chair of the International Astronomy Committee. He actually went to the White House and next to Obama showed the president how to stare at the heavens through a telescope with 200 students on the White House lawn learning to use telescopes. And he will be your moderator tonight.
You actually started your educational career at Hampton College, right? You were a pre-med student. You took time off to serve in the armed forces, and then you returned to become a student in, of all places, Philadelphia. That's correct. Temple University. Even at Temple University. Right. Go out.
We started a project 11 years ago to interview Black people about their lives. This is a big project that we've started to have you meet a person called an African American scientist. When you're going around right now, you're going to want to talk with that scientist and let them know who you are and what your interest is in terms of the science or any questions that you might have. At lunchtime, you'll get a chance, those who are able to sit with the scientists, otherwise we'll be dispersing other staff around to sit at the tables and just engage and talk to you. And then we're going to have a student assembly, and at that student assembly we're going to show the winners of our YouTube contest. There'll be another opportunity to talk with the scientists, and there'll be a whole panel of moderators, who will engage the scientists, and each and every one of you will have a chance to ask questions. So.
Over 200 kids organized themselves in groups of 10 and 12, went around the museum to the 10 stations where the scientists were. Some had flip cameras, some had timers. There were no problems, there was no trouble. The young ladies at my lunch table were a bunch of fun. Here's a group right now at Dr. West's station as he demonstrates his invention, the microphone. He had it plugged into his laptop computer so they can hear themselves. They asked questions and they were pretty much amazed that his invention is in all cell phones. And there was absolutely nothing cooler than Dr. Chad Jenkins showing off his robotics with the helicopter just flying around the room being controlled by a Wii controller and a laptop. Dr. Hicks was cleverly positioned right in front of the famous Franklin Institute Heart. You know, the heart that you can walk through? If you haven't seen it, you need to go up just to see that exhibit. I must say that Dr. Hicks got as many questions from adults as he did from children. And then there is that crazy cell phone wall where when you make a cell phone call, the wall just goes bonkers with blinking lights. Crazy. There's my lunch buddy. We all had a great time.